Bang on, you got it. Thank you, sir.
Great.
Off you go.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, this will be live and learn, right? Oh, I moved that slide. Okay, so intent to record. So there's lots of features in Zoom that you're used. Please make sure you have your mic muted. Would love to see your face. You can chat with each other and put stuff in the chat. And for those of you that are experts, there are lots of beginners here, I'm going to be doing the nuts and bolts of the thinking classroom. So please, 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 in the chat room, share your experiences when I'm on a particular item, things that you do that you think might be useful to the people that are in the session. So here's my outcomes. I'm going to kind of introduce you to the 14 aspects of this, share my experiences of the what, why, and how, and hopefully we can disrupt some educational norms. So this is from Peter's book, From Building Thinking Classrooms, like to build thinking classrooms, to help teachers to change their classrooms into thinking classrooms. He needed a set of tools that would allow him and participating teachers to bypass existing classroom norms. And like, this really is what thinking classrooms have done for me. When I think back to, for myself, this is my 30th year. For probably my first 18 or 20 years of teaching, I was like as traditional as you can imagine, right? Standing, lecturing. And so, when I think back on it now, I think of all those students that I didn't really do a great, I shouldn't say all those students, because there were lots of students that could learn that way, but there were lots of students that fell through the cracks. And I think we as teachers sometimes mistake studenting for learning. So if you've read the book, you understand that studenting is mimicking or faking or stalling or slacking. And I think back of like all the kids that used to mimic my solutions that I would put on the board. That's all they would do. So it's really about breaking down some of the norms of school. Like, as Peter would say, like, if you think about something that doesn't promote thinking, his idea was to do the exact opposite of it. So that's kind of like where that would go. So what is a thinking classroom? And again, this is from Peter's original article on Thinking Classroom, a space that is inhabited by thinking individuals as well as individuals collectively learning together and constructing knowledge and understanding through activity and discussion. So like when you read that quote, it's like, that's pretty interesting way to have your math class operating as much as possible. And so that's a picture of my classroom where students are working it. So how do you do it? So the 14 aspects, I'm going to go through these fairly quickly because I got some other stuff I'd like to talk about from my experiences. So number one is forming groups. So like visibly random groups. So this is daily for me. So what I do is I use cards. I shuffle cards up, and I think you will find that sometimes kids will want to scam the system and work with their buddies. So like they'll just go or trade cards with someone. So one of the things that I do is once I hand out a card, I tell the students just to leave it on their desk, that I'm going to pick it up later. And so knowing where they're seated, I'm expecting them to go to the appropriate whiteboard. So some visible, so they need to see you and they need to know that it's random. And so there's lots of good things that come out of this. They eliminates lots of social barriers. Students become agreeable. You can read some of the things that I think help us. The optimal size for groups, Peter says 3. I would say E, right? 2.71. But I do feel like the visibly random groups is the single most powerful aspect of the thinking classroom. Like there's something about getting students to meet each other, look each other in the eye, say each other by their names. It's not long till all the students know each other in a class. Like I do surveys at the end of each semester, and one of the comments that I've heard repeatedly is like, oh, this is the only class where I know everybody's name. And I teach high school, so it's a little bit different maybe in elementary, but lots of kids will sit there and hide in a classroom, and this having visible random groups definitely changes that. So how we form groups, the way in which we give tasks to students. So, this is very interesting. How you should do it, you should do it orally. There's something about giving the task orally that gets kids to start thinking right away. Instead of, so like you can imagine putting kids in a group of 3 and then giving them text. What's the first thing they're all going to do? They're not going to say anything, and they're all going to read the text. So the idea is that we get them in discussion right away. So by doing it orally, it gets them in discussion, and you should give the tasks as quickly as possible. And I like to get the students huddled. So once they know what group they're in, I like to say, okay, everybody stand up, come on over here near me. And like quite often I'm telling a story to give the task. So it's some sort of like, whatever it would be, like some story that I've made up that has some mathematics in it. And so the way in which we give tasks is super important. So it should be done orally, quickly, and you can experiment with how you give it to them. And like, that's the nice thing about Peter's model, I think, is that you can try lots of different things. So I like to get everyone up and huddle. I suppose you could give them the task before you hand the cards out. So it gives them a little bit of time to process it in their own mind before they meet their group members. When and how a teacher consolidates during after tasks. So Peter likes to say level to the bottom. So like once you've got them working on a task and you've extended the task and they've managed to try multiple different questions, then like how you consolidate. So like one of the things, and I used to do this all the time, right? If things weren't going well in my class, what would I do? I'd say, okay, everybody listen to me. I would like explain how to do a bunch of stuff. And then I would say, okay, go back to work. And they still wouldn't know how to do it, right? Because I was talking over their heads. So I think it's really important that you build their skill. And then like if some groups go off and get further along, that's fine. What you want to do is consolidate to where everybody got to. So it doesn't matter if groups got further ahead. What matters is that you're consolidating where everybody's understanding what you're talking about. The other thing, if it's a big task and they've been working on it all period and there's not really any consolidation happening till the very end, you want to narrate a story. So there's when I look at that, like that's the last 10 or 15 minutes of my class maybe, or it might be in the middle where I'm narrating a story. So like, if you look at this diagram here, here's the task. Here's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different groups. 3 of them have gone sideways to what I was hoping. 2 of them took a direct path to what I was expecting to happen. 1 like got completely lost and then found their way. And then 1 kind of took maybe a long route. So like if I was narrating a story about this, there's a chance that I might, if one of the groups that went sideways was willing to mention or had told me why they went sideways, that might be the first part that I consolidate. I might tell that story. Then this interesting pathway might be a good second story to tell. And then this third pathway where,
Excuse me for a second, Alex. I just want to call your attention. We're seeing there it is. Now it has appeared. So you might want to just repeat a little bit what you just did, because I know people are sitting on their seat wondering if you could just explain that again.
Yeah. So is it delayed? Is that what's happening?
Quite possibly. Sometimes that happens.
Okay. So like this diagram is really like kind of what might happen in a particular class, right? So I'm showing like 7 groups here, and I give them the task, and like this is what I'm hoping to get out of the task, this curriculum expectation. And so 3 groups go sideways, and then maybe 2 groups do it directly how I would have taught it, and then maybe 2 other groups like kind of get there but find a different path. And so like when I'm consolidating, I'm not going to go and do a gallery walk of every single group, but I might do why a group went sideways. I might tell the story of how a group got lost and found their way. And then the last thing I might take one of the groups that did it like kind of how I used to teach it. And then you narrate the story of potential ways of either getting stuck in this problem or solving this problem. The way in which Hinson, so this is flow as a framework. So basically it's the balance between ability and challenge. So and I'll show you a graph here in a second, but you know, if a balance is on, if ability is on the x-axis and challenge is on the y-axis, it's this balance between increasing their ability and increasing the challenge so that they stay in this optimal place of flow. And your job as the teacher is to nurture that balance. So you know, this picture, is that showing?
Sorry, yes, it is.
Yeah, so this is in the books, right? So if the ability is too high for the challenge, people would be bored. And if the ability is too low for the challenge, so like the challenge is too high, then they would be frustrated. And, you know, your job is to try to keep kids in flow. And so we talk about, you know, moments of imbalance. I'm actually doing a talk in 2 weeks on this in more detail, like how strategies to manage flow. But you can imagine if a group is outside, like where their ability is too high, then they're bored. You got two choices. You can increase the challenge for them, or you can decrease their ability. Likewise, if a group has is frustrated because it's too challenging, you can either decrease the challenge or increase their ability and get them back into flow and get them back working on the problem. So that's, you know, that's my job. Like I say this all the time. It's like your job is to work the room. Like once you get them working on tasks, you work the room, right? And then the different types of questions that we, so I like this diagram because I think we think that we all are going to cross the road at the same time, right? We're all going to get it at the same time. So we like the kindergarten kids, we're all holding the rope and we're all going to cross the road at the same time. Yet that's really not how learning happens, right? Everybody's on their own journey. And so like we need to let go a little bit. If one group gets way further ahead, that's okay. If two people in a group get further ahead than the third person, like obviously there's strategies to try to get everybody on the same place, but really we're all on our own journey. Like this is really what learning looks like. So like this whole idea of managing flow, like you're not only managing the flow of people in the group, managing the flow of the group, but you're also managing the flow of the individuals in that group. The types of questions that we answer. So proximity questions, stop thinking questions, and keep thinking questions are really the three types. And you want to answer the third type of those. Proximity questions, like you'll often kids will ask you a question just because you're near them. Stop thinking questions like, is this right? Don't answer those. And then the third type that you want to answer are keep thinking questions. And Laura Wheeler, who also illustrated the book, actually sent this out today, which I thought was pretty cool. Like these are 10 things to say in response to a proximity or a stop thinking question. So these are responses that you can do. One of my favorite moves when they do it is.
Sorry, yep. Alex, we're not seeing anything yet.
Okay, I'll slow down.
Yep, thank you.
So Laura had sent this out today on Twitter, and like this is, you know, these are possible questions that you could ask if they're stop thinking questions or proximity questions.
Could you press your enter button perhaps, and if it's an animation or
Still
something?
not there, eh?
No, not yet. There we go. Oh, is it a red thinking classrooms, 10 reasons?
That's
10
the one.
to say? Yeah, now we got it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so that, you know, that's pretty good, right? Like one of my favorite moves at this particular moment is to like smile and like not say anything. They quickly realize that you're not going to tell them if it's right. Like the whole idea of building autonomy, is for them to be able to check whether their answers are right or wrong. So then the workspaces that they work on. So like, you know, if you know Peter's work at all, you know that vertical non-permanent surfaces is what he promotes. It's great. It allows for mobility of knowledge, right? Kids can see what other groups are doing. It enables you to manage flow. It's engaging for kids. Like, kids love working on them. You know, there's lots of strategies. Only give one pen, only let the person that's don't let the person that's doing the thinking do the writing. It allows you to showcase student work. You know, I like doing group tests and group quizzes on them. And for me, like, I'm relentless, right? My kids, my students, you know, very quickly realize, oh, like, this is normal for us. Like, this is what we're doing every single day. We're standing up and we're working on vertical non-permanent surfaces. So like, I think there's a couple of things that are super important, vertical and non-permanent. You know, Peter's data that he collected shows that this is the best workspace that you can give students. And of course, I think bigger is better. You know, the more space you give them, the better. I'm lucky. I got 10 4x8 sheets around my room. So, you know, our caps are at 30 students. So at most, I'm going to have 10 groups of 3, and they're all going to have like a nice big space. Each group's going to have a nice big space to work on. Your room should be defronted. So like, where you give the task should change. Like, where you do a mini lesson should change. It should be in different places of the room. You know, I've tried very hard to not have a desk in my room. I couldn't manage, but I have tucked my desk into the corner, like it's tucked away, so it definitely doesn't look like it's at the front of the room. I stand at different places all over the room. So, you know, and like, you know, Peter, they experimented with not having any chairs, right? Not having any desks, like lots of different things. And lots of different ways to do this, but I think it's super important that you pick a variety of locations around the room to teach from and to launch tasks from. And of course, if you can use all 4 walls, that's even better. And so here's a picture of my room with, I can actually see if it's showing up now because I logged myself in on a different computer. Yeah, so there's my room with, you know, my desk is in the back left corner here, just to the left of the top picture. And yeah, I got 10 pods of 3 desks, 10 big sheets of whiteboard. There's actually one little whiteboard that you can kind of see that I like to, if I need to write stuff for them to work on, that you can see that one. So that's, there's a couple other pictures of it as well that is going to show up here any moment. Dun, da, da.
The drum roll as we wait.
There they are. So there's a couple other pictures of like what it looks like. And, you know, that's very different than how I was engaged in mathematics. And when I went to high school, it's a long time ago. But you know, it's good to discuss this with your kids too. I think telling them why you're doing it, modeling this for them is a good thing, and letting them understand what flow is, and you know, why we use tasks, you know, when we're thin slicing. Yeah. So autonomous behavior, like, you know, between managing flow and getting students to build autonomy, I think those are 2 super important things that you as a teacher need to work to move towards. And you can model this. You can model how groups can visit other groups when they're stuck. Model how groups can get extensions. Like, so if you're only giving them the first question and you got a series of questions that you're going to give, you know, you put it in a different color on a whiteboard, and they can steal it from that whiteboard and find out what other tasks are. Teach them how to model their own problems and own tasks. You know, I think one of the things I like to do is at week 2 or 3 or week 4, whenever it is, I like to give a task that's about 20 to 30 minutes long, knowing that our classes are 75 minutes, well, 2.5 hours this year, but 75 minutes normally. And finding a group that I can kind of hide with and putting my back to everybody and letting them finish the task and get their phones out, sit down, whatever they would do, because they think they're done. And then let the group that I'm chatting with know, like, yeah, I'm just waiting till like almost every group is done and nobody says anything. And then I'm going to turn around and like make a big deal out of it. I'm like, what are you guys doing? Like, how dare you? Like, we're never done. We're always doing work in this class. Like, why would you stop? And they're like, well, we didn't know what was next. Well, what could you have done? Right. And you build a discussion for the next 30 minutes about autonomous behavior. Like, what can you do when you're done the question that you're done? You could look at your partners group and see that you got a different answer and get together and figure out who's right and who's wrong. You could ask a what if question. What if we did this? What if we did this? And see if you can come up with that solution. Like, I think the idea of building autonomy makes it manageable for the teacher, right? Like, it is really exhausting to do this day in and day out. And if you have kids that are just not going to learn to be autonomous, it becomes very tough. So I think it's super important that you find ways to get them to learn how to self-manage flow and to build autonomy. Those are two things that I think are the essence of this. Evaluate what you value. So you know, I'm going to tell a story. I got stuck on this. Like, when I first heard Peter talk about it, he only told us the first toolkit. So like random groups, vertical non-permanent surfaces, and use good tasks. And off I went and jumped right in. And, you know, what did I do? We did all these tasks. They were standing on whiteboards. They were working in groups, but I was still giving them these tests that were like my old tests, my old individual tests. And, you know, surprise, surprise, kids got mad at me. They're like, come on, you see me doing this every day. I can't do this test. I have no idea how to do this stuff. Like, it's not registering with me. And I know my friend Tactao is here, and there's also a Thinking Classroom group on Facebook, and I hope she doesn't mind, but she addressed this too. Someone was saying like, oh, this is so hard. My kids bombed my first quiz. I'm a beginner at this and it wasn't very good. And this is something she said and wrote back to the person. It was like, one student gave me the analogy of me asking them all to build a house together and then asking them to build another one, but they had to do it all by themselves. And like, it was devastating for the kids. Like, how do you expect me to build a house all by myself when I've had all this support to build it? And I think another student said, it's like you took away my safety hat and my hammer and my blueprints. Like, what did you expect? Of course I bombed it, right? So like, we have to start, and then that would open a great discussion about like, why do we evaluate? You know, so what do you value, right? Like, I think that is a good question to think about for a second. Like, what do you value in your classroom? You know, and if you take a minute and, you know, if we actually all sat there and typed into the chat what it is we value, I think the responses would be not what we would maybe expect from a math classroom. Like, what do you value? Well, I value like kids being respectful, kids working hard, kids wanting to learn. You know, there are all these things. I don't value whether a kid can solve a quadratic equation. Like, that's the content. But what I really value are these other things. And so what you need to do is you need to construct criteria for these things that you value. And so getting kids and co-constructing them with kids is even better. And having those like visible for kids to see so that they know what you value. And so like you have to find a way to evaluate this, right? Like that this is what I want from kids. You know, and I look at stuff in the chat here and it's like these soft skills, right? That is what we value. And so like the formative assessment, you know, communicating with students where they are and where they're going in their learning. Like, I think you need to find a way that works for you. Like, I like to interview students and talk to them about how I see them doing and where I think they're going. So the formative assessment piece. So like, in Ontario, if I know not everyone's from Ontario, we have people from all over, but in Ontario, all of our mathematics curriculum has these overarching process expectations. So we have curriculum expectations and process expectations. And the process expectations are problem solving, reasoning, improving, reflecting, selecting tools and computational strategies, connecting, representing, communicating. So like these are the process expectations that we're supposed to be embedding in our classrooms to get at these content things. And I think what we do as teachers is we try to use the process expectations to get at the curriculum expectations. And I feel fairly strongly that I want to do it the other way around. I want to use the curriculum expectations to see this in my classroom, right? And so, you know, you can add to this too, like perseverance, some of the other things we're seeing, cooperation, empathy, like those are the things I want to see from my students. And so I'm going to use the content to get at that. So, you know, one of my favorite sayings is like, I like to uncover curriculum instead of cover curriculum. Like, so, you know, the kids aren't always sure what the content is, but they know that they're going to be problem solving and thinking and trying to do these types of things within my class. Summative assessment, grade based on data, not points. So, you know, our school board has been on the ball on this for a long time. And I feel very lucky that I teach in the board that I do because, you know, we have been giving grades on data and not points for quite some long time. So in fact, they developed a way of putting data into this thing called MAMA. So I'm just going to show you that. It's going to come up any second, maybe. Let me go back one now.
There we go.
There we go. Yeah, it looks like sometimes when there's a picture, I got to go ahead one and then back one and it pops up. So like this is a particular student. So like the overall curriculum expectations are A1, A2, A3, B1. So there's like 4 strands. What are they? Exponential and logarithmic, trigonometric, polynomial and rational functions, characteristics of functions. And these are the data points for this particular student for different things they did, whether it was a test or a portfolio or a group assignment, whatever they were. And this is that person's data. And then from that data, I'm going to come up with a mark for them. And, you know, last year during the pandemic, I didn't give any tests. I just did portfolios. The kids like used their notes, their mindful notes to create a portfolio. So they were given the expectations and they had to like demonstrate to me that they understood the stuff that we were doing in our math class. So making mindful notes. So like this is really how kids created their portfolio for me. So like student created notes. So, you know, I think it's important that, you know, when you start doing this, what do kids want? They want notes, right? They're like, oh, I'm not getting any notes. So I think it's important that I call them mindful notes. And this is what I send my kids home to do. I know lots of people do it during class, and I think with a grade 9 and 10 class, I probably would do that. But with my grade 12 students, they're up working on the whiteboards really to the bell. And then it's like, okay, your job is to go home and make notes about what you think is important. So there's that. Check your understanding questions. And again, I think you need to do this for what works for you. Don't collect it, don't mark it. right? Like these are questions for them to try to see if they understand what it is they're supposed to be able to do after a particular day. You know, you can get me into the whole idea of like interleaving here for a second, because I like to, when I did give check your understanding questions, it wasn't just on what we did today, it was what we did the day before and the day before, right? So like, here's 3 questions I want you to see if you understand, but you got to go back and like retrieve the stuff from previous days as well. So this idea of lagging check your understanding questions. And then of course the big kicker, types of tasks used and how they're used. Like you want to use good problem solving tasks. Like I like storytelling. I like coming up with tasks that are, you know, good problems. So like, you know, there's an art to this, right? Can you problematize the curriculum? Can you turn the curriculum into a puzzle that will make them think? And so like, that's the goal. And, you know, of course, Peter talks about non-curricular tasks, like early in a course, doing stuff that's not related to your curriculum, but are really good, rich tasks that will get them to develop a culture in your classroom. And I'll comment, like, sometimes when you find it's like not going well, you know, you're a month in and you're just like, oh boy, this is not going well. Do a non-curricular task for the first 10 minutes of a class for a week, and then see what happens, or finish the class with some non-curricular tasks, just to try to rebuild the culture that you want. So he, 4 toolkits, right? The first toolkit, begin lessons with good tasks, random groups, vertical non-permanent surfaces. So like if you're a beginner and you have never done this before, I would say just go do that. Like, see what happens, see if you like it. I think you'll be super surprised at the engagement that you see in your classrooms. And then you can jump to the second toolkit, verbal, and try to do things verbally, defront your room, answer only, keep thinking questions, use meaningful notes, foster autonomy. So that's the second toolkit. The third toolkit, use hints and extensions to manage flow, consolidate from the bottom, assign check your understanding questions, and then the assessment part, right? Communicate with students where they are and where they're going, evaluate what you value, and report out based on data. And I just comment, like, you know, if you
sorry, Alex, that
Yep.
slide just appeared. So some people might want to take a screen grab of that one, because just how you consolidated that information.
The last one?
And the one with all the circles on here, just how you organize
Oh,
it.
okay.
It just came up.
Okay, so I'm certain the one that's up right now is the third toolkit that's circled, but each of these toolkits, so there's the second one, there's the first toolkit. So like, I like the little analogy is like, the first toolkit's like a sledgehammer. Like you're gonna bust their whole idea of what school is, right? You're gonna put them in groups, they're gonna stand up every day, and they're gonna do math tasks, and you're not gonna be like teaching them how to do them, right? So like, that's like getting a sledgehammer out and busting down the walls in your classroom, you know. And then the second toolkit, verbal instructions, defronting the classroom, answer only, keep thinking questions. Like this is more, you know, your framing tools when you're building your house. And then the last two, the assessment piece and the managing flow, consolidating from the bottom, and check your understanding questions. This is like the finishing tools, right? The tools that you need to like put the finishing touches on. And so I think it's, you know, when you bring the sledgehammer in, like it will be super different. And you know, this always struck me about Peter. Like when there was something that needed to be abandoned because it didn't make kids think, he would like go, okay, desks are in rows. We're going to do the exact opposite. We're going to not have desks, right? And he would try to, you know, test things to see which gave him the best results for thinking or maintaining thinking. And I'm like, okay, like it's a great model, right? And I feel very privileged that we've been able to, like, 20 years of him going in and out of classrooms and him passing this book to us with all these great things in it. I feel very privileged that, like, I've been at it for a while and I got to hear him speak prior to the book, because it's changed my classroom. It really is a community inside my class, and I really do like the model. So give this a second for sure.
Yep.
So this is a, what are the kind of videos are those called? A time lapse of my class, just so to give you a feel for how busy and, you know, the thinking and the work that's going into it. And like, you know, for me, for 18 years of my career, kids came to school to watch me work. And now I come to school to watch them work, right? Like, it's completely different. And if you can get them to do math for 75 minutes in your class, like, do we really need them to go and do more at night? Sure, maybe if they're struggling and they need to like pick up some more on it. But I think that that's indicative of what I want to see every day. And I will comment that video, whoops, I'm playing it again. That video, they were working on manipulatives and the whiteboard. So like, you'll see kids sitting, they're actually playing with these blocks and they're actually building cubics and then doing the mathematics of cubics. And I think I had another video, and I'll just show it just because I have it here so you can get another feel for what it looks like. That one's really slow, weird. Anyhow. So again, this is another one where they're playing. Well, you can actually see the stuff they built. It was on the side of the chalkboard there, or whiteboard. Nope, I don't want to play it again. This is Laura Wheeler's graphic for building thinking classrooms. She's got all 14 items. It's a nice little summary, kind of what we talked about today. So good task. Like, you know, I'm a big believer in like, can I suck different areas of math out of my curriculum by bringing in a prompt? So like, you know, I have way too many t-shirts. I threw these on a desk in the middle of the classroom one day, and you can just imagine what they said when they walked in the room. They were already asking the math questions before I asked them to. Like, wow, how many t-shirts do you have? Wow, how long would that take me to fold those? Like, this idea of you know, this hashtag is, what can we do with this? Like, you sometimes to build a task, you just got to go think of something and go, okay, what math can I possibly suck out of this idea? So that's you know, that's me, you know, playing with something. And at the time we were doing lesson studies. So this created a lesson study like this. We ended up coming up with this, and like, you know, the things we did with this, the kids figured out how many there were, like a way to count them by only being given a small sample. So a little extrapolation. Then we did, how long would it take the class to fold them all? What area would they cover? So like, they did some mathematical modeling for us to be able to come up with those. And you know, we spread them all out. They covered a whole hallway, right? We tested our models. Another one, another nice task that I like to use is what's going on in this graph. So like, this one has all the information on it. You just take away all the text and just give them the two graphs. What do you notice? What do you wonder? And then maybe you go and put one clue on one whiteboard and a different clue on a second whiteboard and a different clue on the third whiteboard, and see if they can put the puzzle together. So I really like those. I think the New York Times has some of these. So you can look that up on the New York Times, what's going on in this graph. And they basically take all the text and the kids have to like come up with some ideas about it. So so for me, like I was thinking about this, like how hard or how difficult or how easy it is to implement the 14 items. So I toolkitted them. I did the greens toolkit 1, purple's toolkit 2, orange's toolkit 3, red is toolkit 4. And how difficult is it to implement, from difficult to easy? And then what's the impact on my classroom from low to high in terms of like student thinking or the bluntness of it? Like, wow, this is so different for us. And, you know, this is where I put them, right? And I would encourage you, if you've been doing this for a while, because this really made me think about it, I would encourage you to go and try this. Make yourself a grid and like take the 14 items and place them where you think they belong, right? And maybe that will give you an idea of the things that you really want to focus on getting better at. So, like I said, this is me. This is not, I think it's different for everybody. Like I think some people might have a easy time managing flow. I found it difficult. I find it difficult, right? I find it exhausting. And I'm really trying to get my kids to self-manage flow if I can. So anyhow, I thought that was an interesting activity for me to go through. And that might be something that you might be willing to try on your own after you've done it for a while, and see where they fall for you. Because I was like, oh, this is what it'll be for everybody. And I'm like, this is not what it's like for everybody. Like, I'm sure lots of people find certain parts of it super easy and other people find it, you know, difficult, some parts of it. So something for you to think about. And then if you're a beginner, or if you've never heard of the model before, I like to look at this diagram. So like where you are is at the bottom. Here's now, and here's the future. So that's a timeline, okay? And where you want to be as a teacher, or what you want your classroom to look like. And what do you hear all the time? Change, you know, do one thing, work on one thing. You can't change everything. And like, I think what happens when you do that, like, okay, I'm going to focus on, I don't know, wait times, or it's just some aspect of something. What happens is like, the pressure of life, the rat race of teaching every day, you just end up falling back into your old habits. And I think that the way to go is to like, so you want to follow this red path over time and like get there. And what ends up happening is this squiggly red line at the bottom and you don't make it. And what I think you should do is like make the massive change, like just go for it. And like, even if you fall back a little bit at the end, your classroom will still be different at the end. Whenever I speak to people about either this idea of thinking classrooms or the other thing that I'm right into, which is spiraling curriculum, I talk about just go for it, right? And I think obviously this will be easier to do if you can find a teaching partner, right? So I would encourage you to find someone who you can collaborate, just like you want your kids to, and go for it. The number one thing from Hattie for student improvement is teacher efficacy. So the fact that we can find time to sit down and talk and create tasks and talk about pedagogy and how we're going to teach and what we're going to do. The number one thing you can do for student learning is to do it with people, to collaborate on it. So like, I encourage you to find a partner, and I think that Twitter's a great place to find ideas, to talk to people about ideas. The Facebook group for Building Thinking Classroom has lots of great people asking lots of great questions and lots of people giving lots of great feedback. There's help out there. If you can't find someone in your own building that's willing to take a chance. That's it. Not bad. 7:52, 8 minutes. So that's a massive summary of the whole thing. And you know, normally if you were hearing me speak about Thinking Classroom, we'd be workshopping it. You'd be doing a task. I'd be asking what it was like for you. I'd be commenting on things that happened within the task to get at all the aspects of a Thinking Classroom. So, you know, here we are, like, I'm teaching, or I'm telling you this stuff, and that's not the best way for you to learn it. The best way for you to learn it is to experience it. And yeah, unfortunately, that's not the way it went down. Were there any questions? I'm sure there were. Were there any questions in the chat that anybody wants to ask, or comments?
There was one right at the very beginning, just around operations, and in terms of the groupings. With the pandemic, have you adjusted the way that you're doing your groupings with students with masks? Have you noticed any impact that way, and have you done the work around?
Teaching during the pandemic has been super difficult. I have tried to have a Thinking Classroom. It's not perfect. Random groups are weekly, not daily, unfortunately. How they interact at the whiteboard is different. One kid's standing writing and two people are like social distance, all facing the whiteboard. You know, all these precautions. Of course, it's hard to police. Kids are kids, but I have been able to still have a Thinking Classroom. Our board has, well, kind of, it's not perfect is what I'm saying. But, you know, when we were at home, I used jam boards and breakout rooms. And, you know, for the groups for the classes that were in class with me, and then we had to go home, like it was in January, I guess, in Ontario, that flowed nicely because they already had a bit of a culture of collaboration. But the last quadmester, where we started online, that was a struggle for sure. I still stuck with it though. I still did breakout rooms and jam boards and did it as collaboratively as I could, but it was a difficult thing. I'm looking forward to getting back to normal. So that's a really good question. And you're absolutely right. It's not, like, I think in my last class, one of my last classes that I had right before the pandemic, like in January, and like my kids were like, they had a party before our final exam, like they had a study party. And then after the exam, they all went out for lunch, the entire class. I'm like, okay, like who doesn't want that as a teacher, right? Like that was just outstanding.
I really want to comment. Geraldine just mentioned she's got a QR code for kids to scan and sign in. So she knows who's working together at the board for contact tracing purposes. And I'm just wondering if anyone else has some strategies or ideas to support the current situation, or if you have been doing this virtually, if you want to enter it in the chat, just to give the community some tips and strategies, that would be super helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome with the QR code. That's amazing. Good idea. Like I have to keep track when I do random groups. I have to keep track of them, right? For contact tracing. But you know, I'm not sure my whole class wouldn't have to isolate if there is a case based on the way things are. And because someone's saying someone even said this, right? Their kids are not staying in their group. And you know what? I try not to fight that too much, right? Like I'm always looking around to see if there's a group of two and okay, there's a kid that's with another group who's left on the other side of the room. Like I'll fight it if it's happening with one particular kid all the time, but I'm waiting to see what that kid's doing. Like, is that kid over there getting some information that he's going to bring back to his group? If it is, that's actually good, because that's autonomous behavior. So like this idea of letting go, like we have to, to build this culture in your classroom, sometimes you gotta tolerate a bit of stuff that you might not like, and just be so persistent with it, with the managing of flow, and like letting them know they're never done, and like, can they extend the problem themselves, and like, where can they get the next question without you telling it to them? Like all these things that, I don't know when it is, like week 5 or week 6, whenever it happens, it's like, okay, it's magical now. Like I got 8 or 10 more weeks with this group, and they're into it. They're moving. I've almost got everybody connected to it. And you just have to be super persistent with it.
So Alex, there's a couple of challenges that people are experiencing. So maybe if you can give them a few tips or strategies as well as the group. Somebody is saying they're in their first year fully implementing, they're struggling with building that autonomy that you were just mentioning, managing the flow. So that's a bit of a struggle. And then also getting students to stay in their groups, co-creating the rubrics. And then I do see another strategy, which is great for sharing Flippity.net to group the students and save the page as a PDF for each class each day. So that's great. Maybe you can comment on those first couple of things there. And thin slicing versus rich tasks.
Okay, so quickly for building autonomy and managing flow, like I'm actually doing a talk, I think in 2 weeks here, managing flow. So you'd be I would encourage you to come and hear more about that. And I'm hoping that one's a little more interactive, because I'm expecting it to be people that kind of have a feel for thinking classroom and building autonomy. Like, so that's a tough one, right? Like, because we all have students that aren't particularly interested in it. So how do you get them to keep going? I think that's a little bit of a persistence on your end, but I really like talking to them about what autonomy is, like actually having that. So like I said, I catch them not doing it. And then for the first time ever, they hear me talk about student autonomy and they're like, well, what are you talking about? And the rest of that period, the next 45 minutes are coming up with strategies on how they can be autonomous and what it means. And like that has done a good, that has worked for me. That has really helped my kids understand what my expectations of them are during a particular class. And then what was the second one you asked me?
There was one around what is the comparison of thin slicing versus rich tasks?
Okay, that's a really good question. So like, if I'm in something that's heavy content, if I can think of a way of problematizing it and creating a story that they have to solve, a problem, a task that they have to solve, I'm always doing that. I'm always going to go with a task if I can. If I can't think of a way of doing it, then I'm thin slicing it. So like, I'm always going to go with tasks if I can. If I can't come up with some way of creating a task, then I'm going to thin slice it. So I prefer big tasks with lots of different curriculum in it, or lots of different curriculum that we can suck into it, than thin slicing. I do thin slicing though, don't get me wrong. I do it because there's lots of things that I just can't quite get my head around how I could come up with a good story or a good question for it.
Okay, and any last comments around co-creating rubrics with the kids?
Okay, so I don't do a lot of this. I'll co-create a rubric for tests with them. So like for group, so when I evaluate, well, I haven't done this recently because of the pandemic, but how I used to do it is we always did a group test one day and then an individual test the next day. And they would self-evaluate the group test, and they would self-evaluate their individual test. And it gives me really 4 pieces of data: what I saw them do, what their perception of what they did in the group, and then what they did on the individual test and their perception of what they did on the individual test. And those rubrics I like to co-create with them. But in terms of like the norms for thinking classroom, I just try to emphasize them regularly. I look at it like this. I'm working the room nonstop. So as I'm working the room, I might sidetrack a group to chat with them and build a relationship with them for a while. And then as I'm leaving, I'm like, okay, you guys can get back to work now. So like I'm constantly working the room for the entire time I'm there, giving them feedback, answering their keep thinking questions, building relationships. And that has worked for me. So I haven't done a lot of the building the T-charts. I would say that because I teach grade 11 and 12, I would say that if I was teaching grade 9 and 10, I probably would have to do more of it because there'd probably be more kids that don't buy into it. Yeah. That didn't
All
really,
right.
that didn't
Thank
really
you
help.
so much, Alex. I think we're 3 minutes over, so I do want to honor time because I know our friends in Australia are at a different time zone altogether, and then we've got some other people. It's quite late at night after a long day of teaching. So we do want to thank you very much. I'm wondering if you could just go forward in the slide deck for me, just so we
I
could
sure can.
flash that's the one that I need to see as I spin for prizes. We want to say thank you to Intel for helping us with these prizes. My name is Katina. I'm from Dell Technologies, but Toronto District School Board, proud for over 20 plus years. And now I'm in this role and I get to spin the wheel for prizes. And can I ask you just for a second, Alex, if I can just share my screen just so people can
Totally can.
see their name up?
I need to do that for you.
Yes, please. Just if you can. Yep. Awesome. Yes, and it is a huge thank you for sharing this incredible knowledge. And we're just going to do a few little spins for some gift cards. So I put up your name on here on the spin the wheel. All right, so we'll click and spin it. Let's see how we do here.
Let's go, Dawn.
Okay. That is Maria, and Maria had her second name in there. So Maria, congratulations. You won our first prize. It's a gift card and it will either be in Amazon or Uber Eats, depending on where you live. So congratulations. We'll do 2 more spins. Actually, 3 more. And that, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly when I say Stein. If that's, I hope I said it right, but congratulations, in Memphis, Tennessee. All right, awesome. You're our second.
Hey, right on.
Okay, and then let's spin it again. We have Kirsten as our next winner. All right, Kirsten, congratulations. And we will do 1 more. And let's see. Okay, here we go. We could do a probability question with this, couldn't we, Alex?
We sure could.
It'd be fun. And Terry, congratulations. You are the final winner for this evening. So thank you very much for being here. I know, Alex, if you could flash up the evaluation, but I do want to make sure that we say thank you to everybody. And we look forward in the next 2 weeks. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can go back to you now.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks everyone for coming. Is it possible to put the link in the chat for the
Absolutely.
questionnaire? Can you do that?
Okay, I don't have the questionnaire that's on your slide. I can put into, if people want to enroll in any of the other courses, that's the link for them there. So you can come to the next session where he's going to focus on flow. And then Alex has the link for the evaluation for this evening.
Let me just find the chat here. And so this should be the link for the evaluation. And that would be great if you could take some time to fill that up, that would be great. So thanks
Thank
everyone
you,
for
Alex.
coming.
Yep, sorry. And thank you, Alex. We appreciate your time and expertise. And thanks to this great learning community. We hope you enjoyed your time and this has given you some new tips and strategies. And again, I think hashtag thinking classrooms, let's bring it there into different learning communities. And we hope to see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Stay safe.
Thank you, everyone.
If folks want to stay on a little longer, feel free. We can be on for a few more minutes, but I do want to honor everybody's time, especially this
Yeah,
evening.
I'll gladly stick around and answer anyone's questions if they have some.
Great. I'm just going to finish up the recording now.
Okay.